Donald Trump was hosting Mohammed bin Salman. This is the Saudi crown prince, the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, a country known for its human rights abuses, but trying to push itself forward into the modern era, moving away from oil. MBS, though, has been a global pariah for years since the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. He's a former Washington Post columnist and writer. The CIA had determined years ago that MBS either ordered or orchestrated his murder when he went into a consulate and never came out. He has not been seen in Washington since then. But this week, Donald Trump welcomes him with open arms, calls him his friend, has him seated right next to him in the Oval Office. And when reporters are gathered in the Oval Office, come to ask questions, one of them, an ABC News reporter named Mary Bruce, poses a question about Jamal Khashoggi. Let's play a clip.
Mr. President, is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the
But the
worst.
question is
One of the
legitimate,
worst
sir.
in the business. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind. It's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question. And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych it. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter.
So Trump is clearly taking some of his more authoritarian anti-press rhetoric here and going after the press right in front of a heavy-handed authoritarian leader of Saudi Arabia, where you do not have the press freedoms that you have in the United States. And here he's going after her very hard in defense of MBS, a totally shocking moment. I think everybody, both in the room and outside, were totally stunned over this. What do you make of this?
Well, I thought, one of the great things is when these authoritarian leaders come to the United States, or there's some sort of summit where there's a press conference, is that for the first time, they have to face tough questions from the free press in the United States. And that's actually one of the great things about living in this country, is that we have a free press that can ask hard questions to people who should be held accountable and may not always be confronted by pointed questions. And so really, someone like Donald Trump should celebrate that. And that's a point of pride, that when we have a press that asks tough questions, and that we everyone's held accountable, and this is part of the American tradition. Instead, you see him betray American values and attack the press for doing its job, and go to the aid of someone who butchered or ordered the butchering of an American journalist, someone working for the Washington Post. And in addition to that, right, it's not like there's a lot of freedom happening in Saudi Arabia these days. Now, are they moving in a more westward direction as they seek tourism dollars? Yes. But it's not like, women enjoy the same rights in Saudi Arabia as they enjoy in the United States. We just talked about the Riyadh Comedy Festival. It's not like those comedians could go over there and joke about the government of Saudi Arabia. And so, I thought really what Donald Trump did here was a betrayal of American values by attacking the press and not allowing them to ask these questions. Very basic questions, by the way, too.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't even asking a difficult question here. I think his defense is quite revealing. He has been rolling out the red carpet, like literally, for the Saudis. I think he really wants to bring some, to increase the relationship between the U.S. and the Saudis on the business end. He himself is entangled, his family business, with the Saudis, with potential deals. There's a lot going on here. Later that day, they held what is effectively a state dinner for MBS, where multiple members of the big tech leadership in this country, but also very interesting, David Ellison, who now runs Paramount, thanks to his father, Larry Ellison, who is also closely connected with Donald Trump. They were all gathered together at the state dinner afterward, which is a pretty remarkable scene. As everybody now knows, David Ellison and Paramount are also now trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, which is effectively put itself for sale and is on the market. There is a deadline this week for bids in order to effectively decide who is going to be the future owner of this storied legacy studio business, cable business. CNN is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. This is a huge moment for it. Ellison seems to really want to buy Warner Brothers Discovery and is getting very close to Trump. We had heard, you reported this week, Oliver, that that Ellison and Paramount had gone shopping for maybe some dollars overseas in the Middle East as well. Is that part of this whole situation?
Well, I think there's a lot going on here. So one, Donald Trump definitely favors the Ellisons purchasing purchasing the Warner Brothers Discovery. They already own Paramount. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that who was at the state dinner? It was David Ellison. Was Brian Roberts, the Comcast honcho who wants pieces of Warner Brothers Discovery, was he at the state dinner? He was not. Was anyone from Netflix at the state dinner? They were not. The person at the state dinner was David Ellison, who has developed a good relationship with Donald Trump, and his father obviously is a close ally, someone who actually was, election denying back in 2020. We forget this often, but he joined a call, according to the Washington Post, about how to overturn the results of the 2020 election. So it's clear why Donald Trump likes the Ellisons. And so he favors them. But yes, you're right. Ellison has had conversations with folks in the Middle East, the various funds in the Arab nations, about possibly joining in on the bid to purchase Warner Brothers Discovery. They want to purchase this whole thing whole. So they want the entire company. They want the dying cable assets, as well as the streamer HBO Max and the storied studio Warner Brothers Pictures. The other two likely bidders, Netflix, which is going to put a bid in, as well as Comcast, they only want the growth assets, which are the streamer and the studio, and they don't have any interest in purchasing those cable channels like CNN, HGTV, et cetera, et cetera. So who will win remains to be seen, but certainly there's a possibility some Middle Eastern money is going to be involved there. And it's hard to imagine that with David Ellison in the room and MBS in the room, this probably didn't come up.
Yeah, it seems to me that the Ellisons want to court the Saudis as part of this in order to sort of shortcut a potential move from Brian Roberts and Comcast at getting funding or getting some money in order to finance a deal like Warner Brothers Discovery. WBD is much larger than the purchase of Paramount was, which was tortured and went through this long process just a few months ago. WBD is a much bigger, much more established player. It has larger studio business. It is a much bigger online streamer with HBO Max and its talent. I'm trying to figure out why Ellison, whose father Larry is one of the richest men in the world, literally owns his own Hawaiian island, Lanai, why he would even need the Saudis as part of this. And my assumption here is that it's a way to get into a better place that makes the Trump administration more comfortable in a way, in that he has developed this friendship relationship backing by the Saudis as well, as we see Trump want to really ingratiate himself, really get cozy. He's literally touching MBS in the Oval Office. They're like playing footsie together. It's like totally insane. It feels like this is a way for Ellison, who does not need the money, to also say, hey, this is a potential partner of mine too. And if you guys greenlight this potential deal, you've got nothing to worry about on this front.
Well, we also should point out that Larry Ellison, who has the money, has lost quite a bit of money in recent months as the Oracle stock has, slid a little bit. So I think he's lost over $100 billion or something like that in recent months. So, I don't know if he needs the money. He's still one of the wealthiest men in the world, but certainly spending someone else's money couldn't hurt a little bit. But I think to your point, the Saudis would love, 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 love to get their hands on a storied movie studio like Warner Brothers, to be able to be involved in projects with Paramount Pictures, where maybe those movies, are shot maybe in part in Saudi Arabia. The film stars go to Saudi Arabia, et cetera, et cetera. And if Brian Roberts is courting them and saying, hey, you should help us get this, and we'll, there'll be something in exchange for you, that could be very interesting to the Saudis. So perhaps by David Ellison going to them and saying, hey, Trump actually likes us. This deal has a lot more of a chance of going through if you back us, so you don't back Roberts. That sort of takes the wind out of Brian Roberts' sails and makes it more difficult for him to get a deal across the finish line.
The deal had a deadline on Thursday, which is today, the day we're recording this. As of now, we have heard, you've reported that Paramount, of course, Comcast, and Netflix are the big bidders here in this. Do you have any bets on who do you think is going to pull it off?
Well, it doesn't seem like Warner expects any surprises at the last minute, like anyone to come in, but who knows, and things do happen. I just typically don't think it's smart to bet against the richest people in the world. So, when Elon Musk initially wanted Twitter, he ends up getting it. I have a feeling that given the political power that the Ellisons have with Donald Trump, an ally in the White House, as well as the financial power they have, being among the wealthiest people in the world, it just seems hard to imagine that they'll have this ripped out of their hands. But you never know. And I think at the end of the day, David Zaslav, who controls Warner Brothers Discovery, does not want this to go to David Ellison. I don't think he likes David Ellison. I don't think he likes the Ellisons very much. I think he wants to remain in power himself and be a media mogul, and doesn't want to lose the glamour that comes with it, the trappings that come with being a major Hollywood executive. And he knows that if he goes to Paramount, while David Ellison has offered him, a co-CEO role, that's all sort of that's a vanity title. It's a vanity position. I think he'd much rather be at Comcast, where he could potentially be the head of NBC Universal, a position that's been vacant since Jeff Shell, who now is over with Ellison, was ousted in 2023. And so, theoretically, Comcast buys Warner Brothers Discovery's streaming asset. They buy the studio. David Zaslav perhaps can go run the whole thing and be the head of NBC Universal. And I think he'd much rather have that outcome. The question is, what does the board want? And the board has a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders to get the best deal for them. And I don't know. I mean, it just seems hard to imagine the board turning down a cash offer, mostly cash offer from the Ellisons, instead of, and they turn that down and then they decide to spin off the dying cable assets and then sell the streamer and studio side to another company. Maybe that unlocks more value down the line. It's possible, certainly possible. Some analysts have said that or argued that. But you're asking shareholders then to take a bet on you. And everything you've told shareholders up until now has not worked out, right? The AT&T deal with Time Warner did not work out. They abandoned that deal, and it was a very big embarrassment for AT&T. And the logic behind the initial Warner Brothers Discovery company has not worked out, hence why they're now trying to sell it in pieces or whole. Right. And so do shareholders want to take Zaslav's strategy to unlock more value and run with that, given his track record or the track record of this entire company? Or do they want to take the bird in the hand? I think that's the question that it comes down to.
Yeah. Though at this point, the big sticking point still has been that Paramount has only offered under $25 a share, like $23.50, $24 or so. And if Zaslav and the board want closer to $30 a share, which I'm not sure if it's actually worth that, but that's a whole other topic. Maybe Brian Roberts and Comcast slide in with an offer just carving out studios and streamers. like you said, David Zaslav becomes the NBC Universal president, which would be a fantastic title for him. And we know that he would love something like that. That's pretty enticing, right? And it also just prolongs his continued existence in the business. He was quoted long ago as saying, if you're not in this chair, like who are you anymore? Nobody's paying attention. I do think that there's a chance. And I do think for Comcast, it is a once, maybe in a lifetime opportunity for them to really scale up their Peacock business that right now is small, only available in the US, and they want to be able to grow this thing. And how are they going to be able to ever do that? Is it just going to be a minor side player for forever? And frankly, this is Ellison's problem with Paramount and Paramount Plus too, right? Both of these are like very niche, very small players, even though we know who they are and we talk about them. But they are not even remotely in the same ballpark as Netflix and YouTube right now. And they know they need scale. But it is a huge question hanging over this of regardless of those two, of who is going to be the highest bidder, whether or not this administration would ever greenlight it. And it seems very much that David Ellison is in a pole position with this administration, invited to hang out at the White House, going to the state dinner, right there in the same room as MBS, that he is the one who is, let's say, the golden child in this case, who is in the best position.
And before we go, we should say that the outlet, the asset in the Warner Brother Discovery portfolio that's really drawing the short end of the stick here is CNN, which is quite sad given the need for strong journalism today. But if CNN is sold as part of Warner Brother Discovery to Paramount, it's going to likely fall under the jurisdiction of Barry Weiss, who's going to push that outlet further into pro-Trump waters. If it's not sold, it's going to be spun off to this separate company that's going to be led by Gunnar. I can't pronounce your last name, Gunnar, but Gunnar Weidenfelds. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Who is a notorious cost cutter, who's wanted to cut CNN's balance sheet for some time and really take an axe to it. And so it just feels like CNN, no matter what outcome there is for the overall company, really is quite frankly screwed either way. And I just think it's a very sad outcome for the brand, because it's arguably the most recognized news outlet in the world. It's needed. You want these outlets to shine light in dark places, and I don't know. It just feels like there's no good outcome here in this transaction for that company. Thank you for watching Power Lines. For more analysis and insight, subscribe to our YouTube channel down below, like this video, and you can watch more of us right over here.